Maya Thompson pushed open the glass door of First National Bank and stepped inside. The cool air conditioning hit her face as she walked across the shiny marble floor. She held her grandmother's old leather bag close to her side. The bag was worn and faded. The edges were frayed and someone had repaired it many times with different colored thread. But Maya loved this bag. It had belonged to her grandmother Rose and it meant everything to her. It was Monday morning and the bank was busy. People stood in lines waiting for the tellers. Others sat in chairs looking at their phones. Maya looked around and saw the customer service desk near the window. A sign above it said New Accounts and Business Services. That was where she needed to go. Maya walked toward the desk. Her heart beat a little faster. She was excited but also nervous. Today was an important day for her. She needed to open a business account for her nonprofit organization. The organization had just received a big grant, and she needed a bank to help manage the money properly. Behind the customer service desk sat a woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a dark blue suit and gold jewelry. Her name tag said, Jennifer Walsh, Assistant Manager. Jennifer was typing on her computer when Maya approached. Good morning, Maya said politely. I need some information about opening a business account. Jennifer looked up from her computer. Her eyes moved from Maya's face down to the old leather bag Maya was carrying. Jennifer's expression changed. Her lips pressed together and one eyebrow lifted slightly. She looked at Maya again, then at the bag, then back at Maya. A business account? Jennifer asked. Her voice sounded different now, like she didn't quite believe what she was hearing. Yes, Maya replied. I run a nonprofit organization and we need banking services for... Are you sure you're in the right place? Jennifer interrupted. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. We typically work with established businesses. Her eyes went back to the bag. Maybe you'd be more comfortable at one of our branch locations in other neighborhoods. Maya felt her stomach tighten. She understood what Jennifer was really saying. Jennifer was judging her, not because of anything Maya had said or done, but because of how she looked and what she was carrying. I'm in the right place, Maya said calmly. Could you please give me information about your business banking services? I need to know about fees, account types, and... Jennifer let out a small laugh. It wasn't a friendly laugh. She glanced at another employee sitting at a nearby desk. That employee, a young man in his 20s, looked over and smirked. Listen, Jennifer said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Opening a business account requires significant deposits and proper documentation. We need tax identification numbers, business licenses, financial statements. She paused and looked at the bag again. These accounts are for serious business owners. Maya's hands gripped the bag tighter. She had all those documents. She had everything Jennifer was asking about. But Jennifer hadn't even asked to see them. Jennifer had already decided that Maya wasn't good enough, wasn't the right kind of customer. I understand the requirements, Maya said quietly. I have all the necessary documents with me. Jennifer sighed like Maya was wasting her time. She reached under her desk and pulled out a thin brochure. She slid it across the counter toward Maya without even looking at her anymore. Here, Jennifer said. This has basic information. Why don't you take it home and think it over? Make sure you really understand what's involved before you waste. Before you come back. She turned her attention back to her computer screen. If that's all, I have other work to do. Maya stood there for a moment. She wanted to say so much. She wanted to tell Jennifer about her grandmother, about the nonprofit, about the grant, about everything she had accomplished. But she had learned from her grandmother that sometimes dignity meant walking away with your head held high. Thank you for your time, Maya said. She picked up the brochure and turned to leave. As Maya walked toward the door, she heard Jennifer laugh quietly behind her. Then Jennifer said something to the other employee, but Maya couldn't hear the exact words. She could only hear their laughter. Maya was almost at the door when it opened again. An elderly white man walked in. He wore casual clothes, old jeans, and a wrinkled shirt. He carried a plastic grocery bag in his hand. He looked like he had just come from the supermarket. Mr. Patterson. Jennifer's voice rang out across the bank. Maya turned and saw Jennifer standing up from her desk, a huge smile on her face. How wonderful to see you. Please come with me. I'll take you straight to the VIP lounge. Can I get you some coffee, water? Jennifer rushed around her desk and greeted Mr. Patterson like he was the most important person in the world. She put her hand on his arm and guided him toward a door marked Premier Banking Services. Mr. Patterson mumbled something about just needing to deposit a check, but Jennifer insisted on treating him like royalty. Maya stood frozen at the door. She watched this scene unfold in front of her. The contrast was so clear, so obvious. A man in old clothes carrying a grocery bag was treated like a VIP. But Maya, dressed professionally and carrying important documents, had been dismissed and humiliated. Something shifted inside Maya at that moment. This wasn't just about her. How many other people had Jennifer treated this way? How many people had walked into this bank and been judged unfairly? How many dreams had been dismissed because someone decided they didn't look right or didn't belong? Maya took a deep breath. She looked down at her grandmother's bag. She ran her fingers over the worn leather. This bag had been through so much. It had been with her grandmother through 40 years of nursing, through discrimination, through struggles that Maya could barely imagine. And her grandmother had never let anyone make her feel small. Maya walked out of the bank and stood on the sidewalk for a moment. People rushed past her on their way to work. Cars honked in the street. The city moved around her like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something important. She walked to her car and sat in the driver's seat. She didn't start the engine right away. She just sat there, holding the steering wheel with one hand and her grandmother's bag with the other. Maya thought about her grandmother's words. Rose used to say, "Baby, when someone tries to make you feel small, don't shrink. Stand taller. And when you stand up, don't just stand up for yourself. Stand up for everyone who comes after you." Maya opened her bag and took out her phone. She looked at the bank's website. She read about their commitment to diversity. She saw photos of smiling people from different backgrounds. She read statements about serving all communities and treating every customer with respect. The words on the screen didn't match what had just happened inside that bank. But Maya wasn't just going to complain or feel bad. She was going to do something about it. Back inside the bank, Jennifer returned to her desk after escorting Mr. Patterson to the VIP lounge. She sat down and looked at her colleague. "Can you believe that?" she said quietly. "Walking in here with that terrible bag talking about opening a business account." The other employee laughed. "Did you see how old that bag was? Probably couldn't afford a new one." They both laughed again. They went back to their work, thinking nothing more about Maya Thompson or her worn leather bag. They had no idea that the security cameras had recorded everything. They had no idea who Maya really was. And they had no idea that their few minutes of mockery and discrimination were about to change everything. For them, for the bank, and for countless people who would come after Maya. Maya sat in her car and made her first phone call, then her second, then her third. She wasn't angry. She wasn't yelling. She was calm, focused, and determined. Her grandmother's bag sat on the passenger seat beside her, worn and faded but full of history, full of strength, full of dignity that no one could take away. Maya sat in her car outside the bank for a long time. She kept thinking about what had just happened. But more than that, she kept thinking about her grandmother Rose and the bag that now sat beside her. The bag was more than just old leather and worn stitching. It was a piece of history. It was a reminder of everything her grandmother had overcome. Maya remembered the day her grandmother had told her the story of the bag. It was 3 years ago, just a few months before Rose passed away. They had been sitting in Rose's small apartment, drinking tea and talking about life. Rose had picked up the bag from the table and held it gently in her hands. "You see this bag, baby?" she had said. "I bought this bag in 1965 with my first paycheck as a nurse." Maya had looked at the bag with new eyes that day. "Dandrel," she had asked. "That's right," Rose had nodded. "I was 23 years old. I had just finished nursing school. Back then, there weren't many black nurses. The hospitals didn't want to hire us. The patients didn't want us caring for them. The other nurses didn't want to work with us." Rose had run her fingers over the bag's worn surface just like Maya was doing now. "But I kept showing up. I kept doing my job. I carried this bag to work every single day. It held my stethoscope, my notes, my lunch, everything I needed." "Why didn't you ever buy a new one?" Maya had asked. Rose had smiled. "Oh, people asked me that all the time. Other nurses had new bags every few years. But this bag? This bag was special. It had been with me through everything. Through the nights when patients refused to let me touch them. Through the days when other nurses wouldn't speak to me. Through the years when I worked twice as hard to prove I belonged. Rose's eyes had gotten distant, like she was seeing the past. This bag traveled with me through 40 years of nursing. It went with me when I worked in emergency rooms, when I did home visits, when I taught younger nurses. Every repair, every stain, every worn spot, they all tell a story. Maya had touched the bag carefully. What stories, Grandma? Stories of strength, baby. See this tear here? Rose had pointed to a spot near the handle. That happened the night of the riots in 1968. I was working in the emergency room. We had so many injured people coming in. I worked for 20 hours straight. My bag got caught on a gurney and tore, but I just kept going. And this stain? Maya had pointed to a dark spot on the bottom. Blood, Rose had said quietly. From a little boy I tried to save. Car accident. His mother was crying, screaming. The doctors were working on him and I held his hand. I set my bag down next to him and some of his blood got on it. He didn't make it. I never could get that stain out and I never wanted to. I wanted to remember him. Maya had felt tears in her eyes. Grandma, listen to me, Maya, Rose had said, her voice strong and clear. People judge things by how they look on the outside. They see this old bag and think it's trash, think it means I'm poor or don't have good taste. But I kept this bag because it represents something important. It represents survival. It represents dignity. It represents never giving up, no matter what people think of you. Rose had handed the bag to Maya that day. I want you to have this. I know you're starting your nonprofit to help young people get into healthcare. You're doing what I did, opening doors for the next generation. Carry this bag and remember, never judge someone by what they carry on the outside. Judge them by what they carry inside. Maya had started crying then. I can't take your bag, Grandma. It's too important. That's exactly why you should take it, Rose had said. Important things should be used, not stored away. This bag has work left to do. That conversation had happened 3 years ago. 2 months later, Rose had passed away in her sleep. She was 83 years old. She had lived a full life, but Maya missed her every single day. After Rose died, Maya had learned more about her grandmother's life. Rose had left Maya her life savings. Not much by most people's standards, but everything Rose had. She had also left Maya a small property, a tiny house that Rose had bought back in 1975. Maya had sold the house, combined it with Rose's savings, and used all of it to start her nonprofit organization. She called it Rose's Path Healthcare Initiative. The organization helped young people from poor neighborhoods get into healthcare careers. They provided scholarships, mentoring, internships, everything needed to follow in Rose's footsteps. For 3 years, Maya had worked day and night to build the organization. She had helped 50 young people get into nursing school, medical school, and other healthcare programs. She had used all her own money, worked without a salary, and poured her heart into the mission. And then, 2 weeks ago, everything had changed. Maya's organization had been selected to receive a major grant from the National Health Foundation. The grant was for $2.3 million over 3 years. It was enough money to expand the program to 5 more cities. It was enough to help hundreds more young people. It was enough to make her grandmother's legacy reach further than Rose could have ever imagined. That's why Maya had gone to the bank today. She needed proper banking services to manage the grant money. She needed a business account with the right features for a nonprofit. She had researched banks and chosen First National because they advertised themselves as community-focused and committed to diversity. But Jennifer Walsh hadn't seen any of that. Jennifer had seen a young black woman with an old bag and decided Maya wasn't worth her time. Sitting in her car now, Maya felt many emotions. She felt hurt and angry, yes, but she also felt determined. Her grandmother had faced worse discrimination and never let it stop her. Maya wouldn't let it stop her either. She pulled out her laptop and started researching. First, she looked up Jennifer Walsh on social media. Jennifer's profiles were public. There were photos of designer purses, expensive vacations, fancy restaurants. Jennifer clearly cared a lot about status and money and appearances. Then Maya looked at the bank's website more carefully. First National had recently launched something called a Diversity and Inclusion Initiative. There were news releases about it. The bank president had given speeches about serving all communities fairly. They had hired a chief diversity officer. They had made big promises. Maya read every word. She took notes. She saved screenshots. The difference between what the bank said and what Jennifer had done was huge. Next, Maya called her board of directors. There were 5 people on the board of her nonprofit. All of them were experienced professionals who believed in the mission. Maya explained what had happened at the bank. "That's discrimination," said Dr. Park, one of the board members. "Clear and simple." "We need to file a complaint," said another board member, Mrs. Johnson. "But more than that, we need to make sure this doesn't happen to others." The board agreed. They would support Maya in whatever she decided to do. Maya's second call was to the National Health Foundation, the organization that had given her the grant. She spoke to her program officer, a woman named Susan Clark. "Susan, I need to tell you something," Maya said. She explained the situation at First National Bank. She explained that the bank had been recommended because of their community focus, but that recommendation now seemed wrong. Susan was quiet for a moment. "Maya, I'm so sorry this happened to you." "And I'm concerned. We recommended that bank because of their public statements. If their actual practices don't match their words, that's a serious problem. I'm going to file a formal complaint," Maya said. "I wanted you to know." "Thank you for telling me," Susan replied. "The foundation will support you, and we'll be reconsidering our banking recommendations." Maya's third call was to her friend Jiwon Kim. Jiwon was a reporter for the local news station. They had met 2 years ago when Jiwon did a story about Maya's nonprofit. They had stayed friends. "Jiwon, I have a story for you," Maya said. She told Jiwon everything. Jiwon listened carefully. "This is bigger than just one incident, Maya. This is about systemic discrimination in banking. Studies show that minority-owned businesses are rejected for loans and services at much higher rates. Your experience is part of a larger pattern." "I know," Maya said. "That's why I'm not just going to let it go. My grandmother taught me that when you face injustice, you don't just fight for yourself. You fight for everyone who comes after you." "Can I do an interview with you?" Jiwon asked. "Yes," Maya said. "But I want to focus on change, not just my personal experience. I want to talk about how banks can do better." After the calls, Maya sat quietly for a moment. She picked up her grandmother's bag and held it close. She could almost hear Rose's voice in her head. "That's my girl," Rose would have said. "Stand up. Speak out. Make it count." Maya started her car and drove home. She had a lot of work to do. She needed to file a formal complaint with the bank. She needed to prepare for the interview with Jiwon. She needed to document everything that had happened while it was fresh in her mind. But as she drove, Maya felt something unexpected. She felt hope. What Jennifer meant as an insult, as a way to make Maya feel small, had actually done the opposite. It had reminded Maya of her grandmother's strength. It had shown Maya that the fight for dignity and fairness wasn't over. And it had given Maya a chance to make a real difference. Sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes discrimination can be turned into an opportunity for change. Maya's grandmother had known that. She had lived it. Marcus Chen arrived at his office on Wednesday morning feeling good. He was the regional director for First National Bank, responsible for 15 branches across the city. It was his job to make sure everything ran smoothly. He poured himself coffee and sat down at his desk to check his emails. The first email made him stop. It was marked urgent, sent by the corporate compliance team. The subject line read, "Formal discrimination complaint, immediate attention required." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He clicked open the email and started reading. A woman named Maya Thompson had filed a formal complaint against the downtown branch. She claimed she had been discriminated against by an assistant manager named Jennifer Walsh. The complaint included specific details, witness information, and even timestamps from the security cameras. Marcus immediately clicked on the attached video file. The security system had caught everything. Marcus watched Maya walk up to Jennifer's desk. He watched Jennifer's face change when she saw Maya's bag. He couldn't hear the audio clearly, but he could see Jennifer's body language. The dismissive gestures, the eye rolls, the way she glanced at her coworker and smirked. Then Marcus watched Jennifer's reaction when the elderly man walked in. The complete change in behavior, the rushing to help, the warm smile, the respect. Marcus watched the video 3 times. Each time he felt worse. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was clear discrimination, and it had happened in his region under his watch. He immediately forwarded the email to 3 people: Patricia Morrison, the HR director, David Kim, the legal counsel, and Richard Jameson, the CEO of the bank. Then he called Patricia. "I just saw it," Patricia said before Marcus could speak. "We have a serious problem. What do we know about Maya Thompson? Marcus asked. That's the thing, Patricia said, her voice tense. She's not just anyone. She runs a nonprofit called Rose's Path Healthcare Initiative. And Marcus, she just received a $2.3 million grant. She came to our bank to open a business account to manage that grant money. Marcus closed his eyes. So Jennifer turned away a client with millions of dollars? Yes, but it's worse than that. Maya Thompson has a strong reputation in the community. She's connected. She's respected. And Marcus, her complaint isn't just about what happened to her. She's asking about how many other people have been treated the same way. Marcus pulled up Jennifer Walsh's employee file. Jennifer had been with the bank for 6 years. Her performance reviews were mostly positive. She met her sales targets. She rarely made mistakes with paperwork. But then Marcus found something else. In the file was a folder labeled Customer Feedback. Inside were 4 complaints about Jennifer from the past 3 years. Marcus read through them carefully. One complaint was from an Asian man who said Jennifer had made assumptions about his English skills, even though he was born in America. Another was from a Hispanic woman who said Jennifer had questioned whether she really owned her business. A third was from a young black couple who said Jennifer had discouraged them from applying for a home loan. All the complaints had been documented. All of them had been reviewed, but nothing had really been done. Jennifer had been talked to. She had been reminded of bank policies, but there had been no real consequences. Marcus felt angry at himself. These complaints were red flags. They should have been taken more seriously, but they had been treated as isolated incidents, personality conflicts, misunderstandings. He called an emergency meeting with his management team at the downtown branch. He didn't tell them what it was about. He just said they needed to meet immediately. Meanwhile, Jennifer Walsh was having a normal Wednesday morning. She helped a few customers, processed some paperwork, and chatted with her co-workers during her break. She had completely forgotten about Maya Thompson. The woman with the old bag was just another person who didn't belong in their bank as far as Jennifer was concerned. But across the city, Maya was busy. She had written a careful post on LinkedIn. She didn't name the bank or Jennifer. She just described what had happened and asked a question. How many of us have experienced discrimination in professional settings based on our appearance? How can we create change? The post was professional and thoughtful. Maya didn't sound angry. She sounded disappointed and concerned. She talked about her grandmother's experiences with discrimination and how sad it was that these things still happened in 2024. The post started getting attention. People who knew Maya shared it. Other people who had similar experiences added their own stories in the comments. Within a few hours, the post had hundreds of likes and dozens of shares. Susan Clark from the National Health Foundation saw the post. Even though Maya hadn't named the bank, Susan knew which one it was because she had recommended it. Susan called her supervisor. "We have a problem," Susan said. "The bank we recommended for our grant recipients is discriminating against those very recipients." The foundation took this seriously. They had given out millions in grants. They had recommended First National Bank to dozens of nonprofit organizations. If the bank was discriminating, that was a major issue. Ji-Won Kim, the reporter, also saw Maya's LinkedIn post. She called her news director. "I want to do a story on discrimination in banking. I have a strong source with a clear example, but it's also part of a bigger pattern. Studies show this happens all the time." Her news director approved the story. Ji-Won called Maya to schedule an interview for Thursday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, Maya's LinkedIn post had been shared over 1,000 times. People were asking in the comments which bank it was. Some people were making guesses. The story was spreading, even though Maya had been careful not to name names. At First National Bank headquarters, the executive team held an emergency video conference. Marcus joined from his office. He presented what he had found: the complaint, the video evidence, Jennifer's history of similar complaints. Richard Jameson, the CEO, was 70 years old and planning to retire in 2 years. He had been with the bank for 35 years. He had seen many problems come and go, but this one worried him. "How bad is this going to get?" he asked. David Kim, the legal counsel, was blunt. "It's already bad. The security footage shows clear discriminatory behavior. We have a pattern of complaints against the same employee that we didn't address properly, and the person we discriminated against is connected and respected in the community. There's more, Patricia from HR added. I've been doing some research. Maya Thompson's LinkedIn post is going viral. People are connecting the dots. They're figuring out it's our bank. What does she want? Richard asked. Is she going to sue? She hasn't mentioned a lawsuit yet, Marcus said. Her complaint focuses on accountability and systemic change. She's asking what we're going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again. Keisha Williams, the chief diversity officer, spoke up. She had been in her role for only 8 months. She had been hired as part of the bank's diversity initiative. With all respect, she said, this is exactly what I warned about. We created diversity policies and training programs, but we didn't enforce them. We made public statements about inclusion, but we didn't back them up with action. Now we're paying the price. The room was quiet. Everyone knew Keisha was right. What do we do? Richard asked. First, David said, we need to deal with Jennifer Walsh. We can't let this slide. Second, Patricia added, we need to reach out to Maya Thompson. We need to take responsibility and find out what it will take to make this right. Third, Keisha said, we need to actually implement real change, not just talk about it. Real policies with real consequences. Marcus spoke up. I'd like to call Maya Thompson personally, not to offer a settlement or make excuses, just to listen, to hear what she has to say. Richard nodded. Do it, but Marcus, be careful. Everything we do now is going to be watched. At 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, Jennifer Walsh got a call from Patricia Morrison. Jennifer, I need you to come to a meeting in Marcus Chen's office. Right now. Jennifer felt confused but not worried. She figured it was just some routine thing. She walked to Marcus's office and knocked on the door. Come in, Marcus said. Jennifer opened the door and immediately felt her confidence disappear. Marcus sat behind his desk looking serious. Patricia sat in one chair. David Kim, the lawyer, sat in another. The atmosphere in the room was heavy. Sit down, Ms. Walsh, Marcus said. Jennifer sat. Her hands started to sweat. Is something wrong? Marcus turned his computer screen toward her. I need you to watch this video. The video started playing. Jennifer saw herself at her desk. Then she saw Maya Thompson walking up. Jennifer watched herself judge Maya, dismiss her, laugh at her. She watched herself treat Mr. Patterson completely differently. The video had no sound, but it didn't need it. The visual evidence was damning. Jennifer's face went pale. Her mouth went dry. You were just what? Patricia asked. Just doing your job? Just serving customers. She didn't look like, Jennifer stumbled over her words. She didn't look like what? Marcus asked. Like she belonged? Like she had money? Like our kind of customer? Jennifer realized how bad this looked. How bad it was. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have assumed. This isn't about one mistake, David interrupted. He opened a folder and pulled out papers. These are 4 other complaints against you. 4 other times when customers said you treated them unfairly based on their race or appearance. Jennifer's eyes widened. Those were misunderstandings. Were they? Patricia asked. Because we have a pattern here. A clear pattern of you judging customers based on how they look instead of treating everyone with respect. Marcus leaned forward. Ms. Walsh, do you understand how serious this is? You discriminated against a customer. You violated bank policy. You violated the law, and you damaged our reputation. Jennifer started to panic. I didn't mean to discriminate. I just thought, that's the problem. Keisha Williams's voice came through the speaker on Marcus's phone. She was joining the meeting remotely. You thought you could judge who deserves respect based on their appearance. You thought your assumptions were more important than our values. Ms. Walsh, Patricia said formally, effective immediately, you are suspended without pay pending a full investigation. You will surrender your access badge and leave the premises today. We will contact you within 1 week with our final decision. Jennifer started crying. Please, I need this job. I'm sorry. I'll do better. You should have done better from the start, Marcus said quietly. You had chances. You had training. You had complaints that should have been wake-up calls. But you didn't change. 2 hours later, Jennifer Walsh walked out of First National Bank carrying a small box with her desk items. Other employees watched her go. Word had spread quickly. Everyone was whispering. Everyone knew something big had happened. Jennifer sat in her car and cried. Her career was probably over. Her reputation was ruined. All because of a few minutes of behavior she hadn't even thought about at the time. Back in his office, Marcus took a deep breath and picked up his phone. He dialed Maya Thompson's number. His heart pounded as the phone rang. "Hello?" Maya's voice was calm and professional. "Ms. Thompson, this is Marcus Chen. I'm the regional director for First National Bank. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Maya looked at her phone screen when she saw the incoming call. First National Bank. She had expected this call, but it still made her heart beat faster. She took a breath and answered. "Hello?" she said, keeping her voice calm. "Ms. Thompson, this is Marcus Chen. I'm the regional director for First National Bank. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Maya walked to her home office and sat down. "Yes, I have time." Marcus sounded tired and serious. "First, I want to apologize for what happened to you at our downtown branch on Monday. I've reviewed the security footage and your complaint. What Jennifer Walsh did was wrong. It was discriminatory and completely against our bank's values." Maya waited. Apologies were easy. She wanted to hear what came next. "Ms. Thompson, I want you to know that we've taken immediate action. Jennifer Walsh has been suspended without pay. We're conducting a full investigation, but I want to be honest with you. Based on what I've seen, her employment with this bank will be terminated." "That's a start," Maya said. "But Mr. Chen, can I ask you something?" "Of course. This wasn't the first time, was it?" "Jennifer has had other complaints." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "You're right. There were 4 previous complaints about similar behavior. I'm ashamed to say they weren't handled properly. They were documented but not seriously addressed." "Why not?" Maya asked. She wasn't angry, just direct. "Why does it take someone filing a formal complaint and threatening publicity before action is taken?" Marcus sighed. "I don't have a good answer for that. The truth is we failed. We created diversity policies but didn't enforce them. We did training but didn't follow up. We talked about inclusion but didn't act on it when problems appeared." Maya appreciated his honesty. "So what changes now?" "That's what I want to talk to you about," Marcus said. "I know an apology isn't enough. I know firing one employee doesn't fix a systemic problem. Ms. Thompson, would you be willing to meet with our leadership team? Not to negotiate a settlement to keep you quiet, but because we need to hear from you. We need to understand how to do better." Maya thought about it. "I'll consider it. But Mr. Chen, I need to be clear about something. I'm not interested in a private settlement that makes this go away quietly. I'm interested in real change that helps the next person who walks into your bank." "I understand," Marcus said, "and I respect that. Can I call you in a couple of days to schedule a meeting?" "Yes," Maya said. "But know this, I'm doing a television interview tomorrow about what happened. I won't name the bank directly, but people will figure it out." "I understand," Marcus repeated. "Thank you for taking my call, Ms. Thompson." After they hung up, Marcus sat back in his chair. He had more work to do. He started calling the managers of all 15 branches in his region. He told them what had happened and what was going to happen next. "I want every employee file reviewed," he said to each manager. "Look for patterns of customer complaints. Look for any signs of discriminatory behavior. We're not ignoring this anymore." Then Marcus did something else. He called an all-staff meeting at the downtown branch for Friday morning. He wanted to address what happened directly with the people who worked there. Meanwhile, across town, Jennifer Walsh sat in her apartment staring at nothing. She kept replaying the meeting in her mind. She kept seeing the video of herself on Marcus's computer screen. She looked so mean in that video, so dismissive, so wrong. Jennifer had never thought of herself as racist or discriminatory. She just thought she was good at reading people, at knowing who was serious and who was wasting time. But watching herself on that video, she saw something different. She saw someone who judged people based on appearances. Someone who gave respect based on assumptions about wealth and status. She thought about Maya Thompson, a woman running a nonprofit that just got a $2.3 million grant. A woman with connections and respect in the community. A woman who Jennifer had dismissed because of an old bag. Jennifer picked up her phone and looked at her social media. Her Instagram was full of photos of designer bags, expensive shoes, luxury vacations. She had always thought these things showed she was successful. But now they looked shallow and empty. She put her phone down and started to cry again. Not because she lost her job, but because she was starting to see herself clearly for the first time, and she didn't like what she saw. Thursday morning arrived. Ji-won Kim arrived at Maya's office with a camera operator. Maya had chosen to do the interview at her nonprofit's small office. The walls were covered with photos of young people in nursing scrubs, medical school graduation pictures, thank you letters from students. "Thank you for doing this," Ji-won said as they set up. "Thank you for telling this story," Maya replied. The interview began. Ji-won asked Maya to tell what happened. Maya spoke calmly and clearly. She described going to the bank, Jennifer's behavior, the contrast with how Mr. Patterson was treated. "How did that make you feel?" Ji-won asked. "Disappointed," Maya said. "Not just for myself, but for everyone this happens to. I have education, connections, resources to fight back. But what about people who don't? What about the young person applying for their first car loan? The immigrant trying to open a business account? The elderly person who doesn't speak perfect English? If they're judged and dismissed based on appearance, they might just walk away and accept it. Tell me about your grandmother's bag," Ji-won said, pointing to the bag sitting next to Maya. Maya picked it up and held it carefully. "My grandmother Rose carried this bag for 40 years as a nurse. She faced discrimination too. She was told black women couldn't be good nurses. She was refused service in stores. She was treated as less than, but she never let anyone steal her dignity." Maya's eyes got a little wet, but she kept talking. "This bag is worn because it was used for important work. It's repaired because my grandmother fixed things instead of throwing them away. It's valuable not because of how it looks, but because of what it represents. And that's the lesson I want people to learn. Don't judge based on appearances. You never know someone's story. What do you want to happen now?" Ji-won asked. "Real change," Maya said firmly. "I want banks to train their employees properly and enforce their policies. I want consequences for discrimination. I want institutions to match their actions to their words. And I want to make sure that the next person who walks into a bank carrying their grandmother's bag gets treated with the respect they deserve." The interview would air on the Friday evening news, but Ji-won posted a short clip on social media Thursday afternoon as a preview. The clip showed Maya holding her grandmother's bag and talking about dignity and respect. The clip went viral immediately. Thousands of people shared it. The comments were full of similar stories. People shared their own experiences of being judged in banks, stores, restaurants, and offices based on how they looked. First National Bank's name was now being mentioned directly in social media posts. People were saying they would close their accounts. Others were sharing their own negative experiences at First National branches. The bank's official social media accounts were flooded with critical comments. At bank headquarters, the executive team watched the situation unfold with growing concern. The public relations team was in crisis mode. They drafted statements, prepared responses, and tried to manage the damage. Richard Jameson, the CEO, called another emergency meeting. "This is getting bigger," he said. "We need to decide right now. Do we try to contain this or do we use it as an opportunity for real change?" Keisha Williams spoke up. "We can't contain it. It's already too big. Our only option is to take responsibility and commit to genuine reform." David Kim, the lawyer, agreed. "From a legal standpoint, we're vulnerable. If Maya Thompson wanted to sue us, she would probably win. But she's not threatening a lawsuit. She's asking for change. I think we should meet her halfway. Actually, we should meet her all the way." "What does that mean?" Richard asked. "It means we admit we were wrong," Keisha said. "It means we commit real resources to fixing the problem. It means we create policies with teeth. And it means we bring in outside voices like Maya Thompson to hold us accountable." Patricia Morrison added, "We also need to look beyond Jennifer Walsh. I've been reviewing employee files across all our branches. There are patterns. Not as obvious as Jennifer's case, but patterns nonetheless. Minority customers are rejected for loans at higher rates. They get worse customer service. They're questioned more about their identification and documentation." Marcus pulled up data on his laptop. "Look at these statistics. In the past year, minority-owned businesses were rejected for business loans at our bank at twice the rate of white-owned businesses with similar qualifications. That's not one bad employee. That's systemic." The room fell silent. The numbers didn't lie. First National Bank had a discrimination problem that went far beyond Jennifer Walsh. "If we're going to do this," Richard said slowly, "we need to do it right. Not just for PR, not just to avoid lawsuits, but because it's the right thing to do." "Agreed," said Keisha. "So let's reach out to Maya Thompson. Let's ask her to help us do better." That evening, Maya received an email from Marcus Chen. He explained that the bank's leadership wanted to meet with her. not to pressure her or offer money to keep quiet, but to listen and learn. "We know we need to change," Marcus wrote. "We know an apology isn't enough. We're asking if you would help us understand how to do better. Your voice, your perspective, your experience, we need to hear it." Maya read the email twice. She thought about her grandmother. Rose had always said that real change happens when people are willing to learn and grow. Punishing bad behavior was important, but teaching better behavior was even more important, Maya wrote back. "I'll meet with you, but I'm bringing my board members and my lawyer. Not because I don't trust you, but because this needs to be official and documented, and I'm coming with specific proposals for change. If you're serious about reform, you need to be ready to commit resources and make real changes." Marcus responded within minutes. "Thank you. Name the time and place." "We'll be there." Friday morning arrived. Marcus stood in front of all the employees at the downtown branch. He didn't sugarcoat anything. "Jennifer Walsh is no longer employed by this bank," he said. "She was terminated for discriminatory behavior. But here's the hard truth. This wasn't just about her. We all failed. We created an environment where this behavior was tolerated. We ignored warning signs. We didn't take complaints seriously. That changes now." He looked around the room at the faces of the employees. Some looked shocked. Some looked guilty. Some looked relieved that someone was finally addressing the problem. "From now on," Marcus continued, "discrimination of any kind will result in immediate termination. No warnings, no second chances. We're also implementing new training, new oversight, and new ways for customers to report concerns. If you can't treat every customer with respect regardless of how they look, what they wear, or what they carry, then you can't work here." One employee raised her hand. "Mr. Chen, some of us tried to say something about Jennifer's behavior before. We were told not to make trouble." Marcus nodded. "I know, and that was wrong. We're creating a new reporting system where concerns can be raised anonymously and will be investigated seriously. Your voices matter. You see what happens every day. We need you to speak up." After the meeting, several employees approached Marcus privately. They shared stories about Jennifer's behavior and about the culture at the branch. They talked about feeling uncomfortable but not knowing what to do. They said they were glad changes were finally happening. Maya watched the Friday evening news with her board members. Her interview aired as the lead story. Jiwan had done an excellent job. The segment didn't just focus on Maya's individual experience. It talked about broader patterns of discrimination in banking and other industries. The segment ended with Jiwan saying, "First National Bank has announced they're reviewing their policies and have terminated the employee involved." But Maya Thompson says real change requires more than firing one person. It requires institutions to examine their practices and commit to serving all people fairly. Maya's phone rang immediately after. It was Marcus Chen. "The CEO wants to meet with you Monday morning at our headquarters. Will that work?" Maya looked at her grandmother's bag sitting on her coffee table. "Yes," she said. "Monday works. It's time to talk about real change." Monday morning came with clear skies. Maya dressed carefully in a professional navy suit. She picked up her grandmother's bag and looked at it for a long moment. Then she smiled. Today she would walk into First National Bank's headquarters, not as someone seeking services, but as someone demanding change. Her attorney, James Crawford, met her at the nonprofit office. James was in his 50s, an experienced civil rights lawyer who had worked on discrimination cases for 20 years. Two of Maya's board members also came, Dr. Elizabeth Park, a retired hospital administrator, and Mrs. Dorothy Johnson, a community organizer who had been fighting for justice her whole life. "Ready?" James asked. Maya nodded. "Let's go make history." They arrived at the bank's headquarters downtown at 9 in the morning. The building was tall and impressive, all glass and steel. Inside, the lobby had marble floors and expensive art on the walls. A receptionist greeted them warmly and directed them to the 20th floor. Marcus Chen met them at the elevator. He looked nervous but determined. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "This way, please." He led them to a large conference room. Inside, 6 people waited. Richard Jameson, the CEO, Keisha Williams, the Chief Diversity Officer, Patricia Morrison from HR, David Kim, the legal counsel, and 2 board members of the bank. Everyone sat down around the large table. Maya placed her grandmother's bag on the table in front of her. It sat there like a silent witness to everything that had led to this moment. Richard Jameson started to speak. Ms. Thompson, I want to begin by— Maya held up her hand gently but firmly. Mr. Jameson, if I may, I appreciate that you want to apologize, but apologies are easy. They cost nothing. I'm here to talk about action, about commitment, about change that costs something, time, money, and comfort. Richard paused, then nodded. You're right. Please tell us what you think we need to do. Maya opened her folder and pulled out a document. James helped distribute copies to everyone in the room. This is a proposal that my board and I have prepared. It has 4 main parts. She stood up and walked to the front of the room. Part 1, training. Not the usual 2-hour seminar where everyone signs a form and forgets everything they heard. Real anti-bias training conducted by external experts. Every employee, from tellers to executives, needs to complete 40 hours of training over the next year. And this training needs to include real consequences. If employees don't pass the training, they can't keep working here. Some of the bank executives shifted uncomfortably. 40 hours was a lot of training time. It would cost money and disrupt normal operations. Keisha Williams spoke up. I think that's exactly what we need. We've been doing surface-level training that doesn't change behavior. If we're serious about change, we need to invest seriously. Maya continued. Part 2. Policy changes with real enforcement. You need to revise your customer service protocols. Every customer gets the same greeting, the same respect, the same options presented to them. You need mystery shoppers to test branches. You need customer feedback systems that are actually monitored. And most importantly, you need clear consequences for discrimination. Immediate termination, no exceptions. Patricia Morrison was taking notes quickly. This makes sense. We've had policies without enforcement. That clearly hasn't worked. Part 3, Maya said. A community advisory board. Not a board that just listens to what the bank tells them, but a board with real power. This board should include people from minority communities, small business owners, nonprofit leaders, community organizers. They should review your lending policies, your branch locations, your marketing, everything. And they should have the authority to challenge decisions and demand changes. One of the bank board members, an older man named Robert Harris, frowned. That seems like giving outsiders control over bank operations. Maya looked at him directly. With respect, Mr. Harris, it's giving the people you serve a voice in how you serve them. If your goal is to serve communities fairly, why would you resist input from those communities? Mrs. Johnson, one of Maya's board members, added, Banks make decisions that affect whole communities. Decisions about where to open branches, who to give loans to, what fees to charge. Those decisions shape neighborhoods. The people who live in those neighborhoods deserve a say. Richard Jameson nodded slowly. I see the point. Continue, Ms. Thompson. Maya took a breath. This was the big one. Part 4. A $10 million commitment over 5 years to support minority-owned businesses. This money should fund low-interest loans, financial literacy programs, business development resources, and mentorship programs. You profit from these communities. It's time to invest back into them. The room went silent. $10 million was a lot of money. One of the bank executives, the CFO, spoke up. Ms. Thompson, that's a significant financial commitment. How do we justify that to our shareholders? James Crawford, Maya's lawyer, responded before Maya could. How do you justify discrimination to your shareholders? How do you justify the lawsuits that could come from your current practices? How do you justify the customers you're losing right now because of bad publicity? $10 million over 5 years is an investment in your reputation, your customer base, and your future. Keisha Williams pulled out her own folder. I've actually done some research on this. Studies show that minority-owned businesses are an underserved market with huge growth potential. Banks that invest in these communities see good returns. This isn't charity. It's smart business, Dr. Park spoke up. And let's be honest about something else. First National Bank has made billions of dollars over the years. Some of that profit came from communities you've now underserved. Some came from charging higher fees in poor neighborhoods. Some came from practices that hurt the very people you're now claiming to care about. $10 million isn't an extravagant demand. It's a reasonable investment in repairing harm and building better relationships. Richard Jameson looked at his CFO and board members. He could see resistance on some faces, but he also saw the bigger picture. The bank's reputation was damaged. Customers were leaving. The negative publicity was costing them more than $10 million in lost business. Ms. Thompson, Richard said, if we agree to this, how do we know it will work? How do we know you won't just take our money and then sue us anyway? Maya sat back down and looked Richard in the eyes. Mr. Jameson, I'm not here for money for myself. I don't want a settlement. I don't want to sue you. I want change. Real change that helps people. If you commit to these 4 things, serious training, enforced policies, community oversight, and investment in underserved communities, then I'll work with you. I'll help you get it right. I'll be your partner in change, not your enemy. James added, we're prepared to put all of this in a formal agreement, with timelines, benchmarks, and accountability measures. This won't be vague promises. This will be binding commitments. Marcus Chen, who had been quiet, finally spoke. I've spent the past few days investigating our own practices. The data is damning. We've been discriminating in ways we didn't even realize. Minority businesses get rejected more often. They get higher interest rates. They get questioned more about their qualifications. This isn't just about Jennifer Walsh. This is about systems we've built that hurt people. He looked at Richard. Sir, I think Ms. Thompson's proposals are not just fair. They're necessary. If we don't change now, we'll be forced to change later under worse circumstances. Lawsuits, government investigations, more bad publicity. Or we can lead. We can be the bank that does this right, Patricia Morrison agreed. I've reviewed what other banks have done after discrimination scandals. The ones that fought change ended up paying more in legal fees than reform would have cost. The ones that embraced change came out stronger. David Kim, the lawyer, added his perspective. From a legal standpoint, agreeing to this proposal actually protects us. It shows good faith. It shows we take responsibility. If we fight Ms. Thompson, we look like we're defending discrimination. If we work with her, we look like we're committed to justice. Robert Harris, the board member who had been skeptical, spoke again. Ms. Thompson, I admit I was resistant to your proposals when I first heard them. But I'm 72 years old. I've been in banking for 50 years, and I've seen our industry fail too many communities for too long. Maybe it's time we actually did something about it. Richard Jameson stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the city below. He thought about his legacy. He could retire as the CEO who defended the status quo, or as the CEO who led real change. The choice was clear. He turned back to the room. Ms. Thompson, we accept your proposals. All 4 of them. The room erupted in quiet conversation. Some people looked relieved. Some looked worried. But everyone knew this was a significant moment. However, Richard continued, I want to add something. Ms. Thompson, I'd like to invite you to join our board of directors. We need your voice at the highest level of decision-making. Maya was surprised. She hadn't expected this. Mr. Jameson, I need to think about that. Serving on your board would be a big commitment. I have my nonprofit to run. I understand, Richard said. Take your time. But please consider it. We need people like you helping us make decisions, not just reacting to our mistakes. Over the next 3 hours, they worked out details. James and David hammered out legal language. Keisha and Maya discussed training programs. Patricia and Mrs. Johnson talked about how the Community Advisory Board would work. Marcus and Dr. Park discussed how to identify businesses that needed support. By 1 o'clock, they had the outline of an agreement. It would take lawyers a few weeks to finalize all the details, but the main commitments were clear. Richard stood up. We'll announce this publicly. Together. A joint press conference where we take responsibility and announce these changes. Will that work for you, Ms. Thompson? Maya nodded. Yes, but I want to make sure the message is right. This isn't about shame. It's about growth. It's about a bank that made mistakes learning to do better. They scheduled the press conference for Thursday. That would give the communications team time to prepare and give everyone time to review the final agreement. As the meeting ended, Keisha Williams approached Maya. Thank you, she said quietly. I've been pushing for changes like this since I was hired, but I couldn't make them happen alone. You gave us the push we needed. Maya smiled. We all have different roles to play. You were working from inside. I pushed from outside. Together we made something happen. As Maya, James, Dr. Park, and Mrs. Johnson walked out of the building, James said, You did it, Maya. You actually did it. We did it, Maya corrected. And we're not done yet. Now comes the hard part, making sure they actually follow through. That evening, Maya sat in her office and wrote an email to the young people in her nonprofit program. She told them what had happened. She told them about standing up for dignity and respect. She told them about turning a negative experience into positive change. My grandmother used to say that dignity is something you claim, not something others can take away, Maya wrote. When someone tries to make you feel small, remember who you are. Remember where you come from. And remember that you have the power to demand better, not just for yourself but for everyone who comes after you. Maya looked at her grandmother's bag sitting on her desk. She thought about Rose carrying it through 40 years of challenges. She thought about how one moment of discrimination had turned into an opportunity for systemic change. We did it, Grandma, Maya whispered. Your bag traveled one more important journey. 3 days later, Thursday morning, the press conference took place in the lobby of First National Bank's headquarters. Reporters filled the space. Cameras were everywhere. Maya stood next to Richard Jameson with Keisha Williams and Marcus Chen beside them. Richard spoke first, taking full responsibility for what had happened. Then he announced the 4-part commitment: comprehensive training, enforced policies, community advisory board, and $10 million for minority business support. Then it was Maya's turn to speak. She stepped up to the microphone, her grandmother's bag visible on the table beside her. 3 weeks ago, Maya began, I walked into a bank carrying my grandmother's bag and was judged unworthy of respect. Today I stand here not because I wanted revenge, but because my grandmother taught me that dignity is something you claim, not something others can take away. This agreement isn't just about one incident. It's about ensuring the next young woman who walks into a bank carrying her grandmother's dreams is treated with the respect she deserves. The room full of reporters started asking questions. The story would be everywhere by evening. But this time the story wasn't just about discrimination. It was about change, accountability, and hope. 3 months had passed since the press conference. Maya sat in the first official meeting of the Community Advisory Board at First National Bank. Around the table sat 12 people from different backgrounds. There was Min Jun Park, who owned a small grocery store. There was Pastor Williams from the local church. There was Carmen Rodriguez, who ran a youth center. There was Jamal Washington, a barber who had been rejected for a business loan 3 times before finally getting approved at a different bank. These were real people from real communities, and now they had real power to review and challenge the bank's decisions. Marcus Chen presented the first item for review. We're proposing to close our branch in the Riverside neighborhood and open a new one in the wealthy Oakmont area. Jamal raised his hand immediately. Why are you closing Riverside? That's a poor neighborhood that needs banking services. Marcus nodded. The branch hasn't been profitable. We lose money there every year. Carmen leaned forward. Maybe the branch loses money because people in that neighborhood have been treated poorly and went to other banks. Maybe if you actually served the community well, the branch would be profitable. Pastor Williams added, I know at least 20 people who closed their accounts at that branch because of how they were treated. You created your own problem. The discussion went on for an hour. In the end, the Community Advisory Board voted 7-5 against closing the Riverside branch. Instead, they recommended investing in better service, more bilingual staff, and lower fees for basic accounts. Richard Jameson, who was observing the meeting, spoke up. We'll follow the board's recommendation. Keep Riverside open and make the improvements you suggested. This was real change. This was what accountability looked like. After the meeting, Maya stayed behind to talk with Keisha Williams. How's the training going? Maya asked. Keisha smiled. Better than expected. We're on month 2 of the 40-hour program. Some employees love it, some hate it. But everyone is learning. We've had 3 employees quit because they refused to complete the training. That tells me it's working. It's pushing out people who won't change. And the mystery shoppers? Maya asked. We hired a company to send diverse testers to all our branches. The results are being reviewed every month. Branches that show discriminatory patterns get additional training and supervision. Employees who fail multiple tests get terminated. We've already let go of 4 people based on test results. Maya was impressed. The bank was actually following through on its commitments. There's something else, Keisha said. She pulled out a folder. The Minority Business Lending Program has approved 43 loans so far. Total value of $8.2 million. These are businesses that probably would have been rejected before. But with the new evaluation criteria and training, they're getting fair consideration. She showed Maya photos and stories. A black woman who started a catering business. A Latino man who expanded his construction company. An Asian family who opened a second restaurant. a young black man who bought equipment for his landscaping business. These are real lives being changed, Keisha said. And you know what's interesting? The default rate on these loans is actually lower than our traditional business loans. These business owners are working hard and paying back their loans on time. Maya felt pride swelling in her chest. This was why she had fought. Not for herself, but for people like these. Marcus appeared at the door. Maya, can I talk to you for a minute? They walked to his office. On his wall was a new sign. Every customer deserves respect. No exceptions. I wanted to show you something, Marcus said. He pulled up data on his computer. Customer satisfaction scores across all demographics are up significantly. Complaints about discriminatory treatment are down by 73%. And here's the really interesting part. Our profits are actually up. When we serve everyone fairly, we attract more customers and more business. So doing the right thing is also good business, Maya said. Exactly, Marcus replied. I wish we had learned that lesson without someone getting hurt first. But I'm glad we're learning it now. Maya left the bank feeling hopeful. She drove to her nonprofit office where her team was preparing for the annual gala. This year's event would be special. They were celebrating not just the work of Rose's Path Healthcare Initiative, but also the changes at First National Bank that had rippled out to the whole community. That evening, Maya received an unexpected letter in the mail. The return address was from Jennifer Walsh. Maya hesitated, then opened it. The letter was handwritten, several pages long. Jennifer started by apologizing again, but this time it felt different. It felt real. I've spent these past months doing a lot of thinking, Jennifer wrote. I lost my job. I lost my reputation in banking. I lost friendships. But I needed to lose those things to see who I really was. I was someone who judged people based on how they looked. I was someone who thought status and money determined worth. I was wrong. Jennifer went on to explain that she had started volunteering at a community center in a poor neighborhood. She was helping people with financial literacy, teaching them how to budget, how to understand bank accounts, how to apply for loans. I see now the people I used to dismiss, Jennifer continued. I see their struggles, their dreams, their dignity. I see what I couldn't see before because I didn't want to see it. I'm training to become a social worker. I'll never work in a bank again, but maybe I can spend the rest of my life helping instead of hurting. Jennifer ended the letter by saying she didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted Maya to know that the experience had changed her life. Maya read the letter twice. She thought about her grandmother's teachings on forgiveness and growth. After some thought, Maya wrote back. Her letter was brief but kind. Jennifer, I appreciate your honesty. Real change is hard and uncomfortable. The fact that you're doing the work shows character. I won't forget what happened, but I acknowledge your growth. Keep helping others. That's how you make amends, not through words, but through actions. 2 weeks later, Maya made her decision about joining the bank's board of directors. She accepted the position. At 28 years old, she was the youngest board member First National Bank had ever had. She was also one of only 3 women on the board. Her first board meeting was intense. They were reviewing financial reports and strategy plans. But Maya wasn't there just to rubber stamp decisions. When they discussed opening new branches, she asked about the demographics of the areas. When they reviewed loan approval rates, she asked about disparities between different groups. When they talked about marketing, she asked how they were reaching diverse communities. Some of the older board members seemed annoyed by her questions. But Richard Jameson supported her. These are exactly the questions we need to be asking, he said. 1 year after the incident at the bank, the local news station did a follow-up story. Ji-won Kim interviewed several people. She talked to business owners who got loans they wouldn't have gotten before. She talked to bank employees who said the training had changed how they thought about their work. She talked to community leaders who praised the community advisory board. Then Ji-won interviewed Maya. They sat in Maya's nonprofit office, surrounded by photos of successful students. A year ago, you were discriminated against in a bank, Ji-won said. Now you're on that bank's board of directors. How does that feel? Maya smiled. It feels like progress. Not perfect progress, but real progress. First National Bank still has work to do, but they're doing the work. They're not just talking about change, they're implementing it. What would your grandmother think? Ji-won asked, gesturing to the bag that still sat on Maya's desk. She'd be proud, Maya said softly, not just of me, but of everyone who stood up and demanded better. Change doesn't happen because one person speaks up. It happens because communities come together and refuse to accept less than they deserve. The story aired that evening. It showed statistics. Minority business loan approvals at First National Bank were up 47%. Customer satisfaction had improved across all demographics. The bank had won an award for community investment, but the story also showed that other banks were paying attention. 3 other major banks in the city had contacted Maya, asking for her advice on their diversity initiatives. The First National model was becoming an example for the industry. Maya received invitations to speak at banking conferences. She testified before a congressional committee about discrimination in financial services. Her voice, once dismissed in a bank branch, now influenced policy discussions at the national level. 6 months later, Maya attended Rose's Path Healthcare Initiative's annual gala. The event was held in a beautiful hotel ballroom. 300 people attended. The young people helped by the nonprofit were there, dressed in their best clothes, many wearing scrubs or medical school sweatshirts. During the program, Maya announced something special. First National Bank had donated $500,000 to the nonprofit. But more than that, they had created a scholarship fund named after Rose Thompson. Every year, 5 students would receive full scholarships to pursue careers in healthcare. My grandmother carried her bag for 40 years, Maya said to the crowd. She faced discrimination and disrespect, but she never let anyone steal her dignity. She taught me that dignity isn't about what you carry on the outside. It's about what you carry inside. Maya held up the bag. The audience applauded. Tonight, I'm donating this bag to our legacy collection. But first, we had it professionally restored. The wear is still there. We didn't erase its history, but we strengthened its structure so it can last for generations to come. The bag was displayed in a glass case in the nonprofit's office. Next to it was a plaque that told Rose's story and Maya's story. School groups came to see it. Young people learning about civil rights and perseverance stood in front of it and listened to its story. 2 years after the incident, Maya visited her grandmother's grave. She brought fresh flowers and a photo from the most recent board meeting at First National Bank. In the photo, Maya stood confidently with 11 other board members, all of them committed to fair banking practices. "We did it, Grandma," Maya whispered. "Your bag traveled one more important journey, and along the way we reminded a lot of people that dignity isn't optional. It's a right." Maya sat by the grave for a while, thinking about everything that had happened. One moment of discrimination had sparked a movement. One woman's dignity had forced an institution to change. One old bag had become a symbol of perseverance and justice. As Maya walked back to her car, she saw a young black girl walking with her mother toward a bank. The girl carried a backpack covered in patches and pins. It was old and worn, clearly loved and used. Maya watched as they entered the bank. Through the window, she saw a bank employee greet them warmly. She saw the employee smile and direct them to a desk. She saw the girl being treated with respect. Maya smiled. This was what she had fought for. This simple moment of dignity. This basic respect that should be everyone's right. Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes courage to stand up when it would be easier to walk away. It takes persistence to demand more than words. It takes sacrifice to fight for others and not just yourself. Rose Thompson had taught her granddaughter those lessons through 40 years of carrying a worn leather bag. Maya Thompson had taught them to a bank, to an industry, to a community. Years from now, people would tell this story. They would tell about a bank employee who laughed at an old bag and never expected what came next. They would tell about a young woman who turned humiliation into transformation. They would tell about a grandmother's legacy that changed an institution. But the real story wasn't about one moment or one person. The real story was about the power of dignity, about the strength that comes from knowing your worth, about the change that happens when people refuse to accept less than they deserve. Maya got in her car and drove home. She had a board meeting tomorrow at the bank. She had 3 new businesses to visit that had received loans. She had a speech to give at a university about systemic change. She had work to do. Important work that would carry Rose's legacy forward. The worn leather bag sat in its glass case at the nonprofit office. It would sit there for generations, telling its story to anyone who would listen. A story about dignity that couldn't be stolen. A story about change that started with one brave stand. A story about a grandmother's wisdom living on through her granddaughter's courage. And in banks across the city, people who had once been dismissed were now being respected. People who had once been judged were now being seen. People who had once walked away hurt were now walking in with hope. That was the true legacy. Not the bag itself, but what it represented. Not one woman's story, but the change that story created. Not the past, but the future it made possible. Maya Thompson had carried her grandmother's bag into a bank one Monday morning. She had been judged and dismissed. But she had refused to accept that treatment. She had stood up, spoken out, and demanded better, and in doing so she had changed everything.